Expansion talk seems to be on the rise around college football and college basketball, but would it be a good thing for Indiana?
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, and it is the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. I'm your man, Jacob Goins. I appreciate you being here, making this your first listen or your first watch every single day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. Later on in this episode, we're going to talk about the latest bracketology and how Indiana is somehow still alive, somehow still around in the tournament and alive to make it to the big dance. Plus, we're talking basketball and football expansion across college athletics. And it seems to be a topic that is always sort of on the back burner. It's always something that comes up when times are slow. But I think right now, it's on the rise and faster than ever before. And we're going to start with football. We'll get to basketball in just a few minutes. But my question and the thing that I'm diving into today is it good for Indiana? Is it good for the Big Ten? Is it good for college athletics? And you can have an opinion, a yes or no. Yes, because, no, because. Well, maybe if certain things go certain ways, right? Totally understand. And you're talking about a situation and you're talking about something that we don't know the repercussions from. To this extent, we've seen expansion before, right? With conferences and with playoffs and with the NCAA tournament for college basketball, right? We've seen expansion before, and we've seen how it has resulted in certain areas. But we're taking it a step further and starting with college football, where today, Big Ten athletic directors are meeting again in discussions to expand the college football playoff. And it's something that the SEC and the Big Ten have been all about since the beginning. Since the playoff began, right, over a decade ago, when we finally waxed the BCS. We finally got rid of that system, which doesn't look so bad now, does it? We had a 4-team playoff. Now we've got the 12-team playoff. And now the SEC and the Big Ten, because of how the contract was written, starting in 2026, they have control of what the playoff looks like, how many teams are in it, automatic qualifiers, what other conferences get in, how many teams they get. Because that's how the contract was written, the Big Ten and the SEC get to make that decision. And of course, they're talking about expanding it to 14 or even 16 teams starting in 2026 and through the 2030 season. Why? Well, it's pretty simple. I've told you before, and I'll continue to say it again. Sports are not about the fans. Sports are not about the players. It's not about the coaches. It's not about the schools that play. It's about the money. How can you make more money? And it's very simple. You play more games. That's how it's going to work. And so that's the answer in college football. May not be the answer you like, may not be the answer you want, but it's the answer that you're going to get is when they have a chance. And by they, I'm talking conferences, I'm talking commissioners, I'm talking TV people. When they have an opportunity to make more money, they're going to do it, plain and simple. And by doing that, the way to do that is to play more games. And so you read up on how this could work. Listen to some of this. This is from a Yahoo Sports article that these couple of sentences explain it perfectly. Listen to this. It says the 14 or 16 team model would grant 4 automatic qualifiers each to the SEC and the Big Ten, 2 each to the ACC and the Big 12, talking automatic qualifiers, and 1 to the highest ranked group of 5 champion. It includes 1 or 3 at-large spots, depending on how big the tournament is, right? 1 or 3 at-large spots, one of those intended for Notre Dame if it finishes ranked inside the top 14, a guarantee specifically designated for the Irish that is a part of the college football playoff expansion. I don't agree with the Notre Dame part. I've never agreed with the Notre Dame part because they get rewarded for not playing a conference. They get rewarded for playing an easier schedule than everybody else. Not going on that rant today, but you hear what the SEC and the Big Ten are trying to do. They want automatic bids. They want as many teams guaranteed as possible in this expanded college football playoff. Why? Because it means more money, television deals, branding, advertising, you name it, they've got it. And that's what the conferences want to do. And so, my question that I pose to you and that I'm answering for you, in my opinion, is this good for Indiana? Yes, absolutely. I think it's great for Indiana because if we are to become a program in college football, right? We're talking college football here in this segment. We'll get to basketball in a moment. In terms of college football, if the Big Ten going into every year moving forward, you know that 4 teams from this conference will automatically make it, that will set a standard. That will set a bar that you have to reach. I've compared this to what the NFL does. It's not going to be a perfect simulation. It's not going to be a perfect, I guess, equal. But think about the NFL playoffs for those of you that watch professional football. You know what you have to do. By the end of the year, in the last 2 or 3 weeks, you know exactly what you have to do to make it to the playoffs. I think something like that needs to be implemented in college football. I don't fully agree with this model and how they're planning on doing it, but for Indiana's sake, it would give us a perfect idea of, okay, you win X amount of games, you beat this team, you got the tiebreaker here, boom. We know we get 4, you know where you stand, and you know if you're in or you're out. I like that idea from Indiana's perspective. And just so you know, I've talked about this on this podcast before. Conference championship games are all but over. They're all but done because while they're going to lose a lot of money by not playing them, you're gaining more games from the college football playoff, and teams are going to start opting out of the conference championship games because they don't benefit you anymore. We'll do an episode on that later at some point down the road. But for Indiana's sake, yes, expansion is good because let's be honest with ourselves. We can't expect an 11-win season every single year moving forward. It would be nice, and I'm not one to underestimate Curt Cignetti, but at least if we go 9 wins, 10 wins, if more conference games are added, right, whether like the SEC is trying to do whatever the case may be, you have more room. You have more leeway. You have more room to lose a game or two and still get a chance to make it to the college football playoff, which ultimately means you get a chance to win a national title. So this model benefits IU 100% on the football side of things. It definitely benefits the Big Ten because you get 4 teams in every single year. You're guaranteed representatives, you're guaranteed games, and you're guaranteed money. Is it good for college football? That's a little bit of a different story. I don't think so, but guess what? They don't ask me what I think because they don't care what I think. They don't care what you think. They're going to do whatever they got to do to make more money. But in Indiana, in Bloomington, for those of us that wear these colors and this logo, I don't think we should complain because if we can stay a competitive program, this will allow us greater opportunity to make the college football playoff almost every single year. Now, that's on the football side, and I do think it benefits IU. What about the basketball side? Because that expansion is heating up this week as well. Crazy that they're going on at the same time. Is that a coincidence? I don't think so. We'll talk about the basketball side of expansion with the NCAA tournament and if that benefits Indiana. More on that coming up next right here on the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was dealing with piles of paperwork and frustrating forms, and then waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back. Now, taxes is easily uploading your forms to a TurboTax expert who's matched to your unique tax situation. An expert who's backed by the latest technology, which cross-checks millions of data points for 100% accuracy. While they work on your taxes, you get real-time updates on their progress, and you will get the most money back guaranteed. All while you go about your day. No stressing, no worrying, no waiting. Now this is taxes. Intuit TurboTax. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service. Real-time updates only in the iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. All right, welcome back into Locked On Hoosiers, your daily spot for all things Indiana athletics. Quickly, if you are listening on the audio side, the audio feed on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, whatever platform you decide to use to listen to Locked On Hoosiers, first of all, thank you. I appreciate you being here. But also, make sure that you are following us and have your notifications on. Leave those 5-star reviews. That really helps us grow as well. And our audio listenership is really on the rise. So thank you so much for that. And be sure that you never miss new episodes of Locked On Hoosiers, including the squad episode coming up tomorrow, which I am going to be a part of. I've missed several, I know, but I am going to be representing. And they've been a lot of trash talk in those shows. So I had to get back in there and step up and defend our Hoosiers. So be sure you check that out tomorrow. And then for those of you watching on YouTube, you know the drill. Like the video, gets it out there, helps more people find it. Comment your thoughts down below. Are you a fan of expansion or are you not a fan of expansion? Is Indiana the beneficiary of expansion on football and on basketball, which we're going to talk about in just a second? Leave your thoughts in the YouTube comments. And then, as always, subscribe to the channel. So while it benefits Indiana football in terms of expansion, right, and that word carries a lot of weight because you can talk about the postseason expansion, you can talk about conference expansion, which we've seen plenty of already, especially here in the Big Ten, and I think that has benefited us, to be completely honest with you. I think Indiana benefited from that. I think the Big Ten benefited from that. I think the teams that joined the Big Ten have benefited from that. Same thing with the SEC and the Big 12 and ACC, not so much. And, RIP to the Pac-12. But let's talk a little basketball expansion, because it's been reported this week that the NCAA tournament growth is on the rise and in conversations, in serious conversations, according to several reports, right? It's been talked about and reported that the NCAA and the tournament committee are talking about a 76-team field, is what Pat Forty said in just the last couple of days this week, that a 76-team NCAA basketball tournament is brewing and picking up momentum. At this point, I mean, college basketball is such a different beast because it's such a fun tournament, right? The NCAA tournament, March Madness, right? I know that term is trademarked, but March Madness is the best postseason that exists. It is incredible. I'm a huge hockey fan. I love the NHL playoffs. I used to love the NBA playoffs. The NFL playoffs are pretty darn good too, but nothing touches college basketball in March. Nothing beats it. The TVs are up everywhere. You're watching it at work. You're watching it at school. You're staying up until 1 a.m. to make sure you catch that last game and have that bracket ready to go. There's nothing like it. And I just feel that they perfected it when they got it to 64 all those years ago. And it's been 64 for a long time. Then they added and made it 68, right? You've got the games at Dayton for the first 4. I'm fine with that too. But you're starting to talk now with a 7, you've heard 72, 76, 80 something, 100 something. I mean, at this point, when do you sit down and ask, when is enough enough, right? When does this idea of expansion and growth and opening it up for more teams to get in, like, do we really want more teams to get into the tournament? Because I want you to look and think about this for a moment. We're going to talk about the latest bracketology. I did this on purpose. We're going to get to that in the next segment. But think about the teams that are on the bubble and have been floating around the bubble. Just to give you a quick preview here. Teams like Georgia, North Carolina, Indiana, we're on the bubble. We are. We're the next 4 out. And I just did an episode on Monday that talked about how we don't deserve to be in it just yet. We still have a chance. We can still make a run, but we don't deserve to be there. And teams like Georgia and UC Irvine and Xavier, those teams haven't earned a way into the NCAA tournament, because isn't that what the postseason is supposed to be? Isn't that why you play in the playoffs? It's the best teams from around the country that season who come together as one and compete to see who the best is, to compete to see who the true champion is. You start talking expansion with the NCAA tournament, you're putting teams under 500 in this thing. You're putting teams that have no significant wins into a field where it's possibly the luckiest tournament around. It's possibly the luckiest postseason that exists. That's why the Final Four is so hard. That's why it's celebrated the way that it's celebrated, right? I mean, you don't see the hype around what an NBA conference championship game appearance, right? Like get to the Final Four of the NBA champion, of the NBA playoffs. Like if you win it, yes, but the Final Four is a different beast, man. It is so hard to get there. And I just don't understand this idea other than the ka-ching part of it with the money, right? I don't like the idea of, oh, well, you went 500 in the ACC. Yeah, it's a Power 5 conference. Good for you. Let's put you in, North Carolina. Oh, you don't have any wins? Nah, we don't care. That's a good brand, though. Come on in. Welcome to the party. I just don't like that idea. Now, in terms of Indiana, right, with the question that carries through this show today of, does it benefit Indiana? Is it good for us? Heck yeah, it's good for us. It's so good for us, it applies to this very season. Think about if the tournament field was 70. What did I say? Is that 76, right? Yeah, 76. We would be in, and there would be no questions asked. We would be in the tournament right now, in the tournament field, rather. Of course, there's games still to be played, but we would be in the field right now. That just doesn't sit right with me. And I love Indiana. I love IU, and I think we still have a chance to legitimately earn our way into the tournament. I just don't like this idea of expansion. And that's not why I did this episode today. It's more on for the Hoosiers in particular, who right now, of course, we're looking for a new head coach. We're going to have to get a bunch of new players. Like it could be a couple of years before we're relevant again. But if the tournament expands, you have a better chance to, quote, make the tournament and be relevant and get on TV and have the entire country watch you, which then is an opportunity for you to perform for recruits, for young high school players who are looking to play college ball at the next level. So for Indiana, yeah, it absolutely benefits us. If it's a 76-team field, we may make it last year. We might make it this year. I don't think it would mean as much, but you still get to put it on a banner. You still get to put it in the record books that you made the NCAA tournament. And if you do get that coach that ultimately brings us back, that ultimately makes Indiana good at basketball again, you could almost pencil in Indiana every year to an expanded NCAA tournament on the basketball floor. It would be nice for us. I think it takes away from it, but we would absolutely benefit from it. The Big Ten would benefit from it. You're already talking about a conference with 10 teams slated in bracketology and a 68-team field. We're going to get a couple of more if it expands. And the SEC is going to be the exact same way. I don't agree with it, but we'd benefit from football and basketball expansion. And as those conversations ramp up, it's not a matter of if things are going to get bigger. It really is just a matter of when. All right, coming up here in our final segment of Locked On Hoosiers, speaking of bracketology, speaking of Indiana trying to make the NCAA tournament, we had an update from Joe Lunardi yesterday, and somehow we're still on the bubble. I'll tell you how we can try to get in and where we stand right now, coming up in our final segment right here on Locked On Hoosiers. All right, final segment on Locked On Hoosiers. Again, thank you so much for being here, making this your first listen, your first watch every single day, my everydayers. You know who you are. I know who you are as well. So thank you so much for being here. Been a lot of fun on the show today. And again, really do appreciate you being here. We were talking a little bit just about bracketology and expansion of the NCAA tournament. And good news, I guess, is that's not going to happen this year. That is not happening in the middle of the season. Obviously, So you're still talking about a 68 team field. And the latest bracketology, I look at Joe Lunardi on ESPN. It's the one that's promoted and plugged all over the place. You can look at whichever one you'd like. Nothing is finalized until Selection Sunday. Regardless, according to Lunardi, Indiana is on the bubble, and we are the first team in the next 4 out category. So you've got your last 4 buys, your last 4 in, your first 4 out. We are the first team in the next 4 out. So basically, we're the 5th team out of the tournament right now. And we were not on the bubble last week. We were nowhere near the bubble last week. But a win over Michigan State helped you significantly. That was your big win that you needed to at least get back in the conversation. And that's exactly where we are right now, is in the conversation, and we control our own destiny. I talked about this on Monday on the show where I said, can Indiana still make it? Are we in danger of missing the tournament? Absolutely. We're absolutely in danger of missing the tournament. But I just would love to see somehow, some way for this team to rally, come together, and say, look, Woody, we know it hadn't gone well. We know this hasn't been what you wanted it to be. It's really not what we wanted it to be. And the fans have even more passionate takes than that. But let's rally together and see what we can do. Let's get to the tournament and send him out on a high note. Even if we get there and we lose in the first game, who cares? Just get there, man. Indiana belongs in the tournament. College basketball is better when Indiana's involved, when Indiana's good and involved and relevant. And we're in a spot where, yeah, we'd love to be a 6 seed, 5 seed, solidly in the tournament, which is what we talked about at the start of the year. That's not reality anymore, right? We'd love to just be sitting back, feet kicked up on the desk, and see you in March. We'll see you in the tournament. We're not there. But we are in a unique spot because we control our own destiny. We hold the cards. We hold the cards. If we win, we're in. If we keep losing, we won't have a prayer. And I talked about how we're running out of opportunities, right? We're running out of chances to get those big time wins. How about this weekend against Purdue? How about the game on the road at Oregon? How about the game against Ohio State at the end of the year? It's a good Ohio State team. That's one that I think can make the tournament. Oregon as well. Handle business against Penn State and Washington and try to pull an upset again. And you've got Purdue on your home floor this time. Why can't we? Why can't we do it? You hold your own destiny. You hold your own cards. You control your own destiny. Do I think we make it? For what my opinion's worth? No, I don't. Because I haven't seen us play consistently game after game after game, which is what we're going to have to do. We are coming off a loss against UCLA. That would have been nice. That would have been very nice to have that. You're probably just trying to predict it. I'm saying if you beat UCLA in that game, if you had won that game, you're probably a last 4 in. You're probably in the tournament right now, which you would still have to win games to solidify that, but you would at least be playing to keep your spot rather than trying to knock somebody else out. And that's what people forget too in bracketology, right? That's what people forget in terms of trying to make the tournament. Not only do you have to win games and try to boost your own resume, you're hoping for the downfall of those in front of you. So right now, teams like North Carolina, SMU, Georgia, VCU, Wake Forest, and a horrific ACC. The fact that ACC teams are on the bubble really makes me upset because that conference sucks. They're terrible, okay? Arkansas, Oklahoma, they play in the SEC. Give them their flowers. San Diego State. So you're preying on the teams in front of you to fall and fall hard and not win any big games. But at the end of the day, all you can do is play the teams in front of you. All you can do is win the games in front of you. And maybe Indiana can make a push. The playoff or the bracket is not expanded just yet. It'll benefit us in the future. But right now, you got to make it traditional. You got to make it the old way and win your games down the stretch. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers, man. Thank you so much. What a fun show this was, talking about all the expansion conversations, because they're coming. Just be ready for it. And I think it will benefit Indiana in all aspects. If you're watching on YouTube, like the video, comment your thoughts down below, and be sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. And for my audio listeners, make sure you're following us. Make sure that you are having your notifications turned on. I don't want you to miss any episodes, okay? We're back tomorrow. All right, Hoosier fans. So until then, stay safe, and I'll talk to you later.